Hey everybody, and welcome to the Payments Podium. Today, we're going to bring in some aspects of what's happening in the world, really a point of sale. So it's not a topic I've tackled too many times, but it's a topic where some requests came in, people wanting to learn more about what can be done when it comes to solving problems that are at the point of sale. And to help us, I have George. And George, please tell me, I don't butcher your name when I say this, but Csahiouni?
It's very close. Well, Kevin, thanks for having me. It's actually George Csahiouni. Csahiouni, the C is silent. But thanks a lot for having me today.
Csahiouni. Okay, I'm still probably butchering it. I apologize for that. I am glad to have you on because you're going to be here to help us solve for this issue that we're, or this question that's coming up. And let's start off with, first of all, what is the problem when it comes to small businesses and point of sale? I mean, I don't see a problem. I go into businesses all the time. I'm able to, use the point of sale terminals that are there. So why is this a problem?
Well, I think there's definitely areas of opportunity, and I would say two of the key mainstream areas of opportunity for small to medium sized businesses right now is payment friction would be number one, meaning when you're at the point of sale, when there's a customer at the point of sale, how long does it take for that payment to process? Is it easy for that payment to process? And does the customer feel like they're being supported in that process? With a lot of new technology out there these days, such as, self-serving kiosks that are touchscreen or Apple Pay or contactless types of payments, the whole goal there is to have less payment friction and speed up the process for being able to accept payments. And I would say the other area of opportunity for the business owner primarily is the technology. Point of sale systems used to primarily be going back a few years and much beyond before. They used to just be analog countertop terminals where you would swipe or, enter in your credit
You're not
card
talking
number.
old knuckle busters, are you?
No, well, I mean, you could go back to the knuckle busters, right? But basically, they had a very specific purpose of only processing the payment. These days, point of sale technology is a lot more robust, where it's really a business in a box for a business owner, where they can do things like automation, their accounting and payroll, marketing, inventory, menus, and all kinds of stuff within that system. So, number one, it's making the payments less friction at the point of sale. Number two, the technology that can really support a business owner.
Okay, so you're telling me, and I know you represent a company that does all this. That's why we've got you on to be able to answer all of
Sure.
this. You're telling me that at a point of sale, there is an ability to do far more than just the payment. Because I know in the world of electronic payments, when I'm talking to banks, I'm talking to credit unions, talking to fintechs that are out there, we stress a lot that, you've got this data, you've got all these other things you can do. So you're able, and we got to get to that friction in a minute, but you're able to go in and have the payment, but you said having automation for accounting, even payroll and tracking of inventory can all be tied into one?
Yeah, 100%. So if you think about it, like, if we're just going to talk about a blue collar Main Street business owner, call it John at John's Pizza or Susie at Susie's Salon, what John at John's Pizza typically likes to do is make pizzas, right? He's not necessarily, typically speaking, an accountant or, a master of HR or recruiting or a marketing specialist, right? So, when you walk into any, call it retail business or maybe restaurant, and you walk in there and you go to cash out at a point of sale, you'll notice things, or maybe now you'll notice things such as like, enter in your phone number to get a text receipt or enter in your email, right?
Mm.
And those are all different marketing strategies to also create client profiles, to do things like tracking clients and marketing. So that's one aspect on the marketing side. But yeah, you could do things like linking your QuickBooks or your accounting software into the point of sale. And you can integrate many other systems such as like loyalty points or gift cards and rewards. So it's really, the key is to minimize human error from having multiple employees and minimizing to have extra staff or to be a specialist in every category yourself.
Okay, and also to clarify, Because I love that you mentioned John's Pizza and Susie's Salon there.
Sure.
That we're not really talking the mega big companies. I mean, we know Walmart's, Targets, they've got all of this down to a science.
Sure.
But you're talking about, and people have asked about too, how can we help the smaller business, the community business? Like I think a lot of times, the local landscaper or the local painter or
Sure.
even the food trucks that, come around. Well, for me, it's on Thursday nights in my neighborhood
Sure.
and being able to help them. So you're saying that you're able to, and point of sale technology is at a point to where it can come in and do all this for people?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 100%. And those are really the people that need the most amount of help, typically speaking. They're running with small staff. Sometimes it could be a mom and pop shop, maybe an individual, and it could be small to medium sized businesses. So it might be a restaurant group or whatnot. But,
Mhm.
it's very important today, especially with all the buzzwords in the marketplace on the technology. It's not only, with inflation up, cost of goods up, and interest rates up on lending, everything is being squeezed for those business owners. So it's a lot harder to hire staff to maybe offset bookkeeping or hire marketing companies to help bring in new customers. So having the technology today is really required to compete. And in the past, a lot of that technology was decentralized or was centralized to certain components like accounting only or marketing only. But with a point of sale today, it could all be integrated into one spot where you can log in as a business owner either on site or even remotely. I mean, from anywhere you have access to the internet, and you can get access to all of these systems that are streamlined and automated into essentially one business operating system.
All right, I'm realizing something right in there too. You mentioned the cost, the budgeting that the small businesses have to go by, and for them to be able to afford this. But before we get to that, I got to go back to the friction and talking about the friction that's there, because a lot of the stuff I do in electronic payments, I hear banks, I hear credit unions, I hear businesses say, wires, there's so much friction in them. It takes so long. We got to have so many
Sure.
people, all the paperwork that's done. What is the friction that you're seeing that you're able to solve for?
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners, and a lot of times they don't really understand um, how much of an area of opportunity it may be without actually surveying or asking any of their clients or customers. Unless they're getting negative feedback, they may or may not know. But when we're talking about friction, what I mean is payment acceptance friction. So how easy is it for a customer to go to your website or go to your cash register or your point of sale technology and actually process a payment, pick a product or a service, process that payment and actually check out? Is there any frustration in that process? Is there any kickback from the technology in that process? That's what we mean by payment friction. More sales are accelerated and they feel much better from a consumer standpoint. If I'm buying a product or a service, I'm picking what I want, and the pain of pulling out my card or my cash is easy at the point of transaction. So what we're talking about point of sale friction, what does that process look like in your current business? So, that's something that a lot of business owners really need support with. And a lot of times they don't really know to what degree or to what depth.
So, for example, I had a friend a few months ago. She owed me money and she paid me with Apple Pay.
Sure.
And I was like, no problem. I got my money, right? But when it came time that I wanted to go use that, I ran into a couple situations where it was like, hey, I want to use it here. And I couldn't. And then I actually forgot I had the money there. That I'm looking at my phone one day and here's the money. I'm like, all right, now how do I use this? And
Right.
I could not believe it that the previously mentioned food trucks that I see on Thursday night, one of them did take Apple Pay, but the other one didn't. So I was, nice, and I paid for everybody's meal that night to be able to use those funds. Now I see that and I think, those two different food trucks, and I talk to people, and one of them will say, I can't afford to offer that one. And the other one will say, well, I was able to get a hookup on it. So when
Right.
it comes to the affordability and that friction tying those two together, what's that look like? I mean, how does a small business be able to offer Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay, Discover all across the board?
Yeah, it's a great question. So today, typically speaking, for most retail or small to medium sized businesses, most point of sale systems will come with the capacity to take any type of contactless payment. So it might be Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, any, near contactless technology, the tap and pay of the card, all of that
Mhm.
good stuff. So, most point of sale systems should be able to come that way. There's programs out there in the marketplace that allow for a free point of sale placement for a business owner, whether it be hardware, software, or both. So today, it's really making sure that you're doing a thorough job of when you're talking to a payments or a tech point of sale technology company, you're making sure that you know what some of that friction is. So number one is awareness. So then when you're speaking to a payments in a technology company, you can make sure you identify that the system has all the capacity that you're looking for. I would say that business owners typically do one of two things. They either underbuy the technology or they overbuy the technology.
Well,
Meaning,
wait. They underbuy or they overbuy the technology?
and what I mean by that, yeah, correct. And what I mean is to explain is, a lot of times we remember you referred to the knuckle busters, but what's still commonplace out there is an analog terminal that'll plug into a phone line that allow you to maybe swipe or tap or insert a credit card. And while it does some things there, processing payment and maybe contactless payments, it might not give you any inventory management, any menu capabilities, any marketing or accounting capabilities. So that would be a lot of times businesses today are underbuying in that regard just because they're used to doing what they've always done, or maybe it's legacy, maybe it's a mother, father, or a family owned business, and it's being passed down. And that's just kind of what's been sitting on the counter for the last 5, 10, 15, or 20 years.
So in many ways, it's the way we've always done it.
Right.
And they don't realize maybe even that they're able to get more out of than just the payment,
Sure.
because there is a lot more what I'm hearing that can be done than just the payment.
Correct.
But are you also saying that in the underbuying, overbuying? Well, actually, what's overbuying before I ask any more?
Yeah. So overbuying is a lot of times they'll meet a salesperson, right? A business owner meet a salesperson and they'll get them excited about all the bells and whistles, but it's just kind of like buying a vehicle, right? You may not go, you need a 4-door sedan, but you might not buy the Maybach, right? It's not necessary, right? What are your wants versus what are your needs? And you can always, the cool thing about the technology today in point of sale systems is that the software is usually very easily upgradable. So you can buy a point of sale system. A common one would be like a Clover point of sale, or you may have heard of Toast or Square, currently called Block. So those are very common competing point of sale systems, but they're tablet-based point of sale systems that work off of a cloud. And because the software is remote and easily upgradable, you can kind of lean into that product as you grow into it. So number one, you're not overwhelmed as a business owner. And number two, as your business grows, you can make the POS system be as robust as you would like to. So for example, you might come in day one, launch a point of sale system and have, your payment processing and maybe basic menu items and basic marketing items. A few months down the road or however time's appropriate, you might add, the syncing in of your accounting software. And then you might further down the road add a loyalty or a rewards program. I think a lot of time people overbuy, and then what happens is they get overwhelmed by the system, as simple as they are, but you have to learn each component. And I would say that, it's really up to the business owner to be ready to make a change. So that way they take it by a step-by-step approach versus all at once.
Well, okay, this brings me to something else. Since we mentioned the cloud-based type ones,
Sure.
I've had questions come in. I've had even friends ask me, they're like, how can I get around some of these? Or where's a better way when it comes to all these interest fees that come along with it?
Yeah.
Where's an alternative, an option that I can accept cards, but I can also not have to pay so much in fees, which is known to come with some of those systems. So
Yeah.
what should I be telling those people? How do we answer that question?
That's kind of a loaded question, but I'll break it down to a couple of buckets. Okay. So number one, the payment processing fees of a business owner. So when a business owner accepts a debit or credit card or payment of any kind, there's a processing fee to access the MasterCard and Visa card networks. It typically, on a national average, floats right around 3% all in. Right, all in, regardless of the fee type. So if you process $100, the business owner is typically going to pay $3 in fees, or actually at the end of the day, collect $97. So
Mhm.
the business owner can get very aggressive by looking for a wholesale or a very aggressive type of a rate program. And if they find something like that, that might float around more like 2.1 to 2.3%. So they can save a decent amount of money there on a per transaction item if they don't want to pass the fees on to the customer. The other kind of mainstream payment processing that's out there in the marketplace is doing a surcharge or adding a fee to the
Mhm.
consumer, right? You've probably heard of some of that recently, where if the business owner consumer walks in, does a $100 transaction, the business owner will add, call it 3% to that. So the total transaction would be $103 to offset the payment processing fees. If the business owner has a market where that's acceptable, and there is a lot of markets where it's acceptable, that would eliminate 80 up to 100% of their payment processing fees because they're breaking it up into small pieces and passing it on to the consumer. So that's definitely a way to go. Those are really the two ways to go there. But when you're talking about the technology, and kind of bundling the rates, the processing rates, what you're really looking for today, there's programs out there today with many companies where you can get a bundled program where they might say something to the effect of, Kevin, here's your point of sale system. It comes with the stand, the monitor, the cash drawer, the printer, all the wiring. It comes with the cloud-based system. It's going to come with, whatever the processing rates are. Maybe they're eliminated. It might come with a warranty or other ancillary items. And they might say, for example, that total payment per month is $100 a month or $200 a month all in. So what you're looking for is a program that might have a bundle type of a package that includes all of the rates and processing and also includes potentially any hardware or software. That's becoming more and more mainstream. Whereas what was happening for many years recently and still is in the marketplace is whether they're at a different price point for multiple components. Maybe the payment processing is X, maybe the hardware is X per month, maybe the cloud is an additional software fee of X per month. And then that starts to add up and really get exorbitant sometimes depending on the program.
All right. Well, this brings up something else. I mean, because I get the difference, and maybe it's in your business model of whether or not you just eat the fee or whether or not you tack it
Right.
on. Like I have a friend who's a painter. He
Yep.
does large dollar, projects. He's going to add it on, and he's upfront and tells people, if you
Sure.
pay me this way, there's no fee added on. If that's how you're going to pay me, we've got to include the fee because he's not
Right.
going to take that loss.
Right.
Whereas I got a friend who does food trucks. He doesn't care. It's a whole different world, and it's
Yep.
also a much smaller fee he's paying in
Right.
comparison.
Right.
But what I'm also hearing here is, monthly fees, investment to get started. And if I think of like the small business owners that are out there that, like we already mentioned, a lot of these business owners, they know the business they're in. They don't understand payments whatsoever.
Sure.
And what do we tell them as far as how do they go about investing in this? How do they go about getting started in this? What should they be looking for? Because a lot of them I know, A, they don't know it. B, they're, small budgets even to get started. How's that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say if small to medium sized business owners, whether they're just starting in the business, it's a brand new business, maybe you're even doing a build out, right? Or you're remodeling a business, or you just need to upgrade technology and systems within the business, right? Every one of those scenarios, basically what you're going to run into is an outlay of cash. And how much
Mhm.
cash do you want to put into the business? And the thing about it is that with technology, as everybody knows, just like your phone, your Androids and your iOS, and they're coming out with a new one every year. And some of the technology changes, specifically now back to point of sale, there's significant movements in the market. So, what I would suggest is is doing a program where you can finance or be on a program fee for a short term, call it anywhere from 12 to 60 months, most of them falling in 24 to 36-month type of programs, maybe even 48. Where, if I'm again going back to John and John's Pizza, maybe John and John's Pizza has 8 point of sale stations and some other equipment and wiring he needs. The average point of sale station currently is going to be right around $3,000 as a cash price, give or take, right? So that might be $20,000 to $30,000 plus install. So rather than doing that, John might be able to find a program where instead of paying that $30,000 upfront in cash, he might be able to find a bundle program where he's committing as a business to do business with a payments company or a point of sale technology company and put no money down and then just get the equipment placed there for free, get the technology installed for free for a low monthly payment, including his payment processing fees. So, a scenario of an example.
So
I
they
just
get the
mentioned,
equipment and they get the payment processing fee, more like a bundle type deal where they can more
right,
forecast what's happening.
right. And that might be 300, 400, 500 a month, depending on, John's needs or the business owner's needs, depending on the technology or whatnot. But it creates a lot more flexibility, no outlay in cash. And then what additional benefit to that is that John, the owner, can then expense that payment and really get that value back at the end of the year on the tax returns. So not only are they not putting the cash out, they're actually going to get a deduction on that, just like any other service that they might, partake in as a business. They'll be able to expense it at the end of the year. And then lastly, they're in much better shape to not have to service or maintenance that technology because it should be a part of that agreement. And when time comes up, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, they can decide, hey, are we in a good place with what we have? Do we want to keep it another couple of years? Do we need to upgrade some or all of that technology component and not be locked into something for an indefinite period of time, but also not having to pay all that cash up front? So from our perspective, that's really the only way to do it these days, especially with all the other costs, rising across the board.
Yeah. Well, George, I already know. As soon as this airs, I'm going to be getting these DMs coming in, these emails coming in. People are going to say, okay, great. Now, how do I do that? Where do I go to do that? I know I brought you in because with Swoop, I believe that's something that you solve for that you're able to help with. But
Sure.
some people ask me too, do I go directly to Swoop? Do I go to my local bank or my local credit union? Where do I get started? How do I tie my accounts into something if I go to somebody like you? How is something, don't make it a sales pitch, please, but answer that for me.
Yeah,
Where's somebody supposed to go to get that to happen?
Yeah, the first thing that I would do, on behalf of the consumer or the business owner, what you should do as a business owner is get your merchant statement of your credit card processing. Look at that name on the top left of that merchant statement. That's going to be your credit card processing company. They're going to probably have point of sale technology there, and ask them for a rate review or, talk about their point of sale technology that you have and or your what you can get into. The other thing that I would do is if you on the back or on the side of any point of sale technology machine, specifically hardware, there's usually going to be an 800 number there. That 800 number is not typically going to go to the payment processing company, but it'll usually go to the manufacturer of that point of sale technology. So there's usually 24-hour, 7-day-a-week technical support, and you can probably set up some free training on your technology that you have right then and there to walk through different items. And I don't think that a lot of folks really realize.
Wait, get out of town. You seriously are telling me that this is available to everybody? They can just call the number and that the hardware people will actually help them to be able to get this and make this happen better?
Yeah, typically speaking, they'll walk you through anything you need. And a lot of times they'll have like scheduled webinars or things that where you could actually do a Q&A as a business owner and, get familiar with your point of sale technology. But if you're looking to make a move as far as upgrading point of sale technology, the first thing that I would do is I would go online, find a technology company that has positive reviews. Find something that has positive reviews because that's going to give you an indicator as to do they install it properly? Do they work with the business owner properly? And in our business, the point of sale technology business, knowing the technology and really showing the business owners how to use it effectively for optimization, that's really the key to success.
All right. That's actually really cool. I got one last question, though.
Sure.
A lot of times people ask me, predict what the future is going to look like. So when you look into the future of point of sale and you look at especially the hardware, things like that, and I hear things about instant payments coming in to, we're going to be able to compete with cards too. There's a lot of, let's say, different theories, different ideas that are out there. But what would you say if somebody asked you, what's the future of POS look like? What should they be thinking? What do you see is going to happen?
That's a great question. We explore this all the time in our space. So we believe that hardware will become more and more obsolete as far as individual housing units of point of sale technology, meaning that everything is going to lean more and more, and it already is, to SaaS, software as a service type of point of sale technology. You can already walk into more innovative businesses, if you will, and you'll pay phone to phone, right, or your phone to their device, which is very common. But a lot of times that you'll be able to go into a store and you'll log into a QR code or some type of entry point that'll lead you to that software to make payment. That might even start coming off of like the tags of the items for sale, right? You might be able to just pay through the tag, through a QR code on retail items, or you're even seeing it at restaurants where you can pull up the menu through like QR codes and things of that nature. So as technology continues to innovate, I think it may go a couple of different directions depending on industry types. But overall, as a whole, what you're going to see is more and more automation and more SaaS point of sale. And I think that SaaS is going to, again, turn into more of a CRM system for business owners with all-encompassing features rather than just specific components, as we mentioned earlier.
I can see that happening myself too. Okay. I said that's the last question, but one last thing. I don't know if it's a question. Wait, it is a question.
Sure.
People listening, if they want to get a hold of you, they want to learn more about Swoop, where do they go? How do they make that happen?
Yeah, you can check us out at www.swoopbusinesssolutions.com. You could also just call us. We have our advisors are happy to reach out and chat with anybody. It's 877-707-9667. Again, 877-707-9667. Or you can just email us at info@swooppay.com.
Okay, this has been great. I mean, I've learned a lot about POS, about the payments friction that's out there, about how technology does a lot more than just the payment nowadays, and how important that can be, how this is accessible to even the smallest of business. So I greatly appreciate you coming on today, sharing your knowledge with us. And for those of you listening, this was a podcast that was done via request. So if you've got some requests out there, if you've got some questions, or maybe you just know somebody who needs to be on the Payments Podium, email me, kevin@paymentsprofessor.com. I will do all I can to get that topic or that person on the podium and make sure your questions get answered. But for now, this is where I say, class dismissed.